Antarctica, a continent veiled in mystery and intrigue, holds secrets that have fascinated explorers, scientists, and historians for centuries. Among the enigmatic artifacts that hint at ancient knowledge of this icy realm is the Piri Reis Map, a document that challenges our understanding of not only history and cartography, but of Antarctica itself. On October 9, 1929, a German theologian named Gustav Adolf Deissmann was cataloging items in the Topkapi Palace library in Istanbul when he stumbled upon a curious parchment located among some disregarded material. On the gazelle skin parchment was a map, now known as the Piri Reis Map, drawn in 1513, the map that sent shockwaves among historical and academic circles. Since its discovery, it has been a subject of constant intrigue and controversy. Why? The map shows the presence of what appears to be a representation of the continent of Antarctica. Why is that strange, you wonder? It is strange because Antarctica wasn't discovered until the early 1800s, and the Piri Reis Map was drawn in 1513 AD. The Piri Reis Map allegedly depicted Antarctica some 300 years before it was officially discovered. But the depiction of Antarctica is not the end of the mystery of Piri Reis Map. What is even more baffling and intriguing is that the map appears to show Antarctica in the state before it was covered in ice. And that means the Piri Reis Map allegedly shows Antarctica as it existed thousands of years ago. How could Antarctica show up on a 1513 world map some 300 years before it was actually discovered? More intriguingly, how could the map show the version of Antarctica that existed thousands of years ago instead of the way it existed in the 1500s? The map was drawn and signed by Turkish cartographer Hagji Ahmed Muhiddin Piri, or Piri Reis, and is dated to 1513 AD. Reis was an admiral in the Turkish Navy, an experienced sailor and a cartographer. Much of Piri Reis's biography is known only from his cartographic works, including his 2 world maps and the Kitab-i Bahriye, or the Book of Maritime Matters, completed in 1521. He sailed with his uncle Kemal Reis as a Barbary pirate until Kemal Reis received an official position in the Ottoman Navy in 1494. In one naval battle, Piri Reis and his uncle captured a Spaniard who had participated in Columbus's voyages and who likely possessed an early map of the Americas that Piri Reis likely used as a source in his map. When his uncle died in 1511, Piri Reis temporarily retired to Gallipoli and began composing his first world map. The finished manuscript was dated to the month of Muharram in the Islamic year of 919, equivalent to 1513 AD. Piri Reis returned to the Navy and played a role in the 1517 conquest of Egypt. After the Ottoman victory, Piri Reis presented the 1513 world map to Ottoman Sultan Selim I. It is unknown how Selim used the map, if at all, as it would vanish from history until its rediscovery centuries later. The strange thing about this remarkable map is that it shows features of the Earth that nobody in 1513 should have been able to know. Before the 18th century, sailors ran the risk of crushing their ships onto rocky coastlines because they lacked one thing: the ability to calculate longitude, for which you need an extremely accurate clock. It wasn't until 1790 that the first accurate marine timepiece was invented and sailors could pinpoint their position on the seas. Yet 250 years before this clock was made, Piri Reis drew a map which astoundingly showed the coastlines of Africa and South America within just half a degree of longitude. The intriguing thing about this map is that Piri Reis tells us himself that the knowledge he displayed in the map was not entirely his own. It was knowledge that he had borrowed from earlier maps. Piri Reis himself stated on the map that it was based on more than 20 source maps, including 8 Ptolemaic maps, 4 Portuguese maps, an Arabic map, and even a map by Christopher Columbus. Some of these maps went back to the time of Alexander the Great, or even earlier, in other words, before even the time of Christ. So the mystery is, where did these source maps that Piri Reis used come from? Who charted the globe long ages ago with an accuracy that we ourselves can hardly match today? Most importantly, what is the explanation for depicting Antarctica as it existed thousands of years ago? The claim that the landmass depicted in Piri Reis Map is Antarctica originates with Captain Arlington Mallory, a civil engineer and amateur archaeologist who was a supporter of pre-Columbian transoceanic contact hypotheses. Mallory used a grid system to reposition the coordinates on the Piri Reis map and claimed the accuracy of these reconstructed maps to be comparable to modern maps. Assertions of Mallory inspired historian and Professor Charles Hapgood to undertake a study on the map. Dr. Hapgood, an historian educated at Harvard, was admired by the likes of Albert Einstein for his theories on geological shifts. Hapgood's findings were compiled in his 1966 book, Maps of the Ancient Sea Kings, that have since sparked the great debate about the presence of Antarctica in the Piri Reis Map. Hapgood and a team of students at the University of New Hampshire studied the map and found many anomalies, such as the use of Mercator projection, a cylindrical map projection that was originally created to display accurate compass bearings for sea travel. They also studied the inclusion of Antarctica in the map. In 1961, a U.S. Air Force captain working in the cartographic section wrote a letter to Dr. Hapgood and stated that the Antarctica drawn on the Piri Reis map appears to accurately depict the coastline of Antarctica as it existed under the sheet of ice. The captain based his evaluation on the seismic profile of the Queen Maud Land area made by the Norwegian-British-Swedish expedition of 1949. As for Mercator projection, though the technology was not used by Europeans until the 16th century, the Greeks were known to create cylindrical maps based on their knowledge of a spherical Earth, and were also able to use astronomy and geometry to calculate latitude and longitude. But while the use of Mercator projection in Piri Reis map could be attributed to the use of Greek source maps and charts from the age of Alexander, nothing could explain the inclusion of Antarctica, that too pre-iced one. As a result, Hapgood made the astounding claim that the Piri Reis map was based on knowledge and materials that are older than 4000 BC, before the existence of any known developed languages or progressive civilizations. What this essentially means is that a prehistoric civilization had the technology to navigate major seaways and fairly accurately chart the globe. And Piri Reis drew his 1513 map based on knowledge and materials of this prehistoric civilization. Hapgood also suggested that the topographic depiction of the interior of the continent required aerial capabilities, implying the prehistoric supercivilization to be both nautical and aerial masters, and leading to the further speculation of either an Atlantean or alien civilization. Taking cue, writers like Eric von Daniken, Donald Kehoe, and Graham Hancock have repeated Hapgood's claims as proof of ancient astronauts, flying saucers, and even a lost civilization comparable to Atlantis. The question remains, did Piri Reis draw Antarctica on his map? And was it based on the materials of a 6,000-year-old civilization? Or was it based on the knowledge of some extraterrestrial force? The answer, it seems, is inconclusive. If the land shown in Piri Reis's map is indeed Antarctica, the first question that comes to mind is, how did he even know about Antarctica, given that the ice shelves of the continent weren't seen until the 1820s, some 3 centuries later? And if it indeed is Antarctica, how could it have been depicted without a sheet of ice in the 1500s? There are a number of prevailing theories, ranging from the scientific to the speculative. Skeptics of Hapgood's theory point out that the map is actually a representation of the South American coastline, pointing to modern physical features of the coast and interior included on the 16th century map. Otherwise, argue critics, the image would indicate that Antarctica and South America had once been connected at Uruguay, and that Argentina did not yet exist. While this argument possibly dismisses the presence of Antarctica on the Piri Reis map, other anomalous maps have been found that are identical to the ice-free continent, as only 20th century satellite technology has been able to identify. Other theories of Hapgood have also been dismissed, such as his polar shift theory, in which he claimed a sudden shift in the inclination of the Earth's axis of rotation in 9500 BC could have resulted in the displacement of Antarctica, sending it hundreds of miles south and resulting in the alteration of its climate from semi-temperate to freezing. Some also argue that cartographers of the Middle Ages speculated landmasses based on limited data, sometimes filling in gaps with educated guesses. The Piri Reis 1513 map used multiple sources, and it is possible that at least one of those sources contained speculative geography. Another interesting, although unlikely theory, is that the map doesn't depict the actual coast of an ice-free Antarctica, but rather its seafloor topography. But this would mean that ancient mariners had a way of detecting underwater landmass shapes, an interesting but unlikely proposition. Many experts have also posited that it is highly unlikely that Antarctica was ice-free at the time range argued by Hapgood, that is 4000 BC. According to experts, recent ice core data shows that Antarctica was last free of ice over 10 million years ago. Lastly, While the authenticity of the Piri Reis map itself has hardly ever been questioned, some have nevertheless suggested the idea of forgery, or at least later modifications. However, there's currently no definitive evidence to support this theory, and the map's discovery in the Topkapi Palace and its well-documented provenance can effectively rule out forgery as a possibility. The real question is whether or not Antarctica is the identifiable continent on the Piri Reis map. If it is, could the Piri Reis map have been based on the documents of a yet undiscovered prehistoric civilization, one that could possess technology enabling them to travel and accurately chart the globe? Throughout history, the Piri Reis map has been a subject of fascination and controversy. Its Antarctic depiction continues to spark curiosity and inspire new avenues of research. The Piri Reis map reminds us of the interconnectedness of cultures and the importance of preserving historical artifacts. Whether it's through scientific analysis or cultural interpretation, each discovery adds to our understanding of human history. As we delve deeper into the mysteries of our world, artifacts like the Piri Reis map serve as windows into the past, inviting us to unravel the secrets that lie beneath the surface. To continue your ancient adventures, please consider subscribing to our channel and press the notification button. Till the next time, this is Ancient Secrets.